You know, they're selling y'all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you'll do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there, I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I am gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Nick Diaz, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. Chimney. I want smoke.
Yes. What is up? What is up? MCR family, another daily edition of Mixed Combat Radio, where we cover all things in the combat sports world, live every day, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Hit that like button, share the show, subscribe. Yes, Gus says, haters beware. Yes, hipsters here, haters beware. I don't use that, do I? Now that I'm just like solely on MCR, have I don't think I've been using that call sign as much. I should bring that back though. That was good. That's always a good one. But yes, I mean, obviously it's Manny Pacquiao fight week. You know, regardless of who he's fighting, it will probably be one of the biggest events in the sporting world, or I should say, our sporting world of combat sports. And you know, the UFC does have an event. We're gonna break that down tomorrow. I wanted to keep them separate. Just so the podcast listeners can, you know, be a little more convenient for them because I don't separate the show for the podcast listeners. So tomorrow's show, we will be MMA first, cover the UFC fight night tomorrow first, and then head into the boxing news today. Obviously break down the Manny Pacquiao versus Lucas Matthysse fight, the fight card, all the fights this weekend basically, and then head into our MMA news for those that want to know. Shout out to Oscar Martinez, real Miocic, especially Nigel, man. Pound for pound supporter over there. Pound for pound supporter. Gus Sandoval, Fighter IQ, a.k.a. Ron. Check out his channel and the new TBV co-host. Shout out to you. Bugatti, what up, brother? Mr. Boxing and Rabitsky, what is up, everyone? I hope everyone's having a great hump day. But yes, let's get into it because it is, like I've been saying, like everyone has been saying, it is Pac-Man Fight Week. It is one of the most transcendental boxers ever, and it's his fight week, and I feel like no one's talking about it. And it's on a streaming app that God knows how many people actually have subscription to. So what are we going to see with this? You know, what's the hype around it? What's sort of going to be the pushback or the overall atmosphere to this week? It's weird. And, you know, we're obviously going to talk about the UFC 226 card and their pay-per-view numbers in the second half of the show, and how poor those numbers were, and how I even said before that fight, there doesn't seem to be this big fight atmosphere for this one. I would say the same with this. Even with the Jeff Horn one, there was something in the air. That fight was on regular ESPN. Stephen A. Smith, and everyone on ESPN was pushing it heavily that week. This one doesn't have that to me. I think there's a little bit of a push to it, obviously, because it's on the ESPN app. Now I was listening to another podcast that's completely separate from this, and they brought it up very briefly. But still, it doesn't seem like there's that, oh, it's a big fight. It doesn't seem like that. It's weird. You know, even a year or two ago, this would be different, I would say. Potential lunatic, Wayne. What's up, guys? I see you joining the chat. I'll be honest. I don't know what to make of it because I forget who posted it on social media. They posted like the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years of Manny Pacquiao's career and the downward trend it went. From Floyd Mayweather doing 4.5 million pay-per-view buys, record breaker at the time, to Timothy Bradley, which HBO did not pick up. Actually, HBO did pick that one up. And then that did pretty mediocre numbers. Jesse Vargas, HBO did not pick that one up. Top Rank had to do their own solo pay-per-view numbers at around 350,000 pay-per-view buys. Then they went to ESPN, did around 3.1 million viewers peak, around 2.9 average. And now they're on a streaming app for ESPN. That's all within the past 3 years and his past 4 or 5 fights. He went from the biggest pay-per-view in history to now on a streaming app. I think that really personifies where we have, like, what state Manny Pacquiao is in. Manny Pacquiao is a shot fighter. I mean, I made the comparisons to Roy Jones in the past with Manny Pacquiao. I think that's probably one of the better comparisons for him. Highly athletic, explosive power puncher with incredible reflex, incredible speed. And I think there's a similar trend here. If you look at Manny Pacquiao's career, the Marquez knockout was in 2012. That was 6 years ago. So think about that point in Manny Pacquiao's career in the history of sort of like boxing. Like, I think that was a turning point. Even though he went on to fight Mayweather after that, 3 years after that, I think a lot of people sort of realize that Manny Pacquiao, the version of Manny Pacquiao that we sort of thought we had, is gone. And then he's fought for a better part of a decade since then. And has had wins and losses here and there, has looked lackluster in fights like in the Brandon Rios fight, the Jeff Horn fight, even a little bit of the Jesse Vargas fight. He didn't really look to be prime. And now we have him facing a guy like Lucas Matthysse, who, again, maybe in his prime would have been a much better fighter, but Manny Pacquiao should be the clear favorite and the clear sort of pick against a guy like Lucas Matthysse stylistically. Lucas Matthysse is not the greatest boxer. He's not, the fastest guy. He's not the most athletic guy. Those really good hard combinations on the inside, but not the greatest fighter at range. Struggles with guys on the back foot, giving him angles. Manny Pacquiao, in any sort of frame of mind that we think of Manny Pacquiao, should be able to beat that, but I don't think that's really that easy to pick nowadays. Could we see a similar thing where we had Manny Pacquiao, Roy Jones lose to like Antonio Tarver a few times, right? And then about 6 years later, he lost to B-Hop, lost to Denis Lebedev in a row, by knockout. I think we're sort of still going to get that point where, or we're at that point with Manny Pacquiao, I should say, that this could be another one of those really bad losses. Wayne saying Pacquiao's so watchable. I think he is. I think, like, even Roy Jones in the B-Hop and Lebedev fight in the mid-2000s, that was, or I should say like 2008, 2009, I want to say, right? That was still watchable in a sense, but we knew that that wasn't the prime version. And we knew that the prime version of Roy Jones would have beat those guys that he lost to. Similar to how we know that a prime Pacquiao would have destroyed a prime Lucas Matthysse. It would have been easy. You would have danced around him and pieced him up all day till Matthysse was bleeding, bruised up, swollen, and quit. We know that would have been the case, but it's 2018. It's been almost a decade now since Pacquiao was knocked out by Marquez cold, and his career forever changed. I don't know if it's easy to pick Pacquiao. I think Pacquiao, in terms of breaking down this matchup now in 2018, I think Pacquiao is still the faster guy, still better footwork, still, I would say, has more output overall. But I see that defensively, what he relied on so much was his athleticism, his ability to get in and out and side to side faster than you can follow him or you can punch. If you think that Pacquiao can still do that in today's age, go watch the last few fights of his. He hasn't really been able to do that. He gets caught on the ropes a lot. He gets caught just shelling up quite a bit because he doesn't have the same athletic head movement and reflexes like he once did. Yeah, he has flashes of it, let's be honest. He is that still great of a fighter. But I think Matthysse eventually is going to track him down. I think Matthysse is eventually going to get him along the ropes and start unleashing a lot of shots and a lot of strong hooks that still have a lot of power. There's one thing we've seen from Matthysse in his last few fights, against Emmanuel Taylor and Karam. He can still deliver hard, punishing shots. What we've seen from Pacquiao a year ago now, over a year ago with Jeff Horn, was a faded shot version that really couldn't keep up with the pressure and the power of a Jeff Horn. Now, I think Jeff Horn in today's age obviously is a better fighter and overall package and overall threat to deal with than a Lucas Matthysse. But I still see the same issue with Pacquiao. I think Pacquiao is going to get caught on that ropes consistently and get caught with shots. And I think it's going to be one of those things where it's eventuality. Pacquiao is going to get KO'd. He's going to get stopped again. Taking a year off without any tune-ups and going against a Matthysse, I don't think is the right idea. I think the Mike Alvarado fight that they were sort of throwing out there first was the right matchup. That's the fight that they should have put together. Because Mike Alvarado doesn't have the power, doesn't have the skill, and he's definitely more shot than both these guys combined. Ron saying Lucas looked slow as fuck in his last fight. He did. He did look slow as fuck. We all know that. But Pacquiao's entire defensive acumen and skill and technique is based off of his speed, is based off of his athleticism, and that is clearly gone. Matthysse has never really, I would say, used his athleticism as the crutch of his overall game. Matthysse is a very traditional boxer, puncher, brawler. Can't fight at long distance. Great on the inside. Great at mid-range especially. And likes to deliver hooks more than jabs. But I still think Pacquiao is a little bit more shot in the right areas to lose. Man, that's so mean. Fat Apple saying basically his Horns leftovers versus Post's leftovers, but Manny's always a legend. Of course, I think Matthysse is probably going to finish Pacquiao probably a little bit late, round 7 to 10. Pacquiao's going to give it a good effort, but I think this is just too much at this point. Now, Pacquiao's legacy is cemented. Regardless of what happened or has been happening in the last 6 years or so, his run, basically from the Morales and Barrera wins all the way to Margarito, etc., that's cemented. That will always be one of the best runs in boxing ever. He is the second best boxer of his generation and one of the biggest stars while being a non-English speaker and non-U.S. citizen. And he was able to become a million-plus buy pay-per-view star at some point in his career. Yeah, Manny Pacquiao is one of the best legacies in the sport. I just think, again, that's great, but it's 2018. And just like Roy Jones, a great comparison, I think, to Manny Pacquiao and sort of the trend we are seeing with Manny Pacquiao. We've seen that already with Roy Jones. One of the best ever, if not the best ever. Not necessarily the best star or the level of star that Manny Pacquiao was, obviously, but skill-wise, Jones has a claim to being the best ever. But eventually his athleticism went, a thing that was so foundational to his game, similar to Pacquiao, and he wasn't able to compete at this level anymore. Even at a Lucas Matthysse-esque level, I don't think that these guys can compete at this point, unfortunately. It is on the ESPN Plus app for those that maybe did not know. The actual undercard of that fight itself is really lackluster. I'm not even going to really mention it that much, to be honest. But Friday on ESPN Deportes, Vanessa Estrada and Marcela Conejo, two great female boxers, some of the best around. They are fighting on ESPN, so go check them out. Definitely go give them some exposure. Japan, over in Japan on that same day, Ryu Yamanaka versus Fake Saluda versus for Yamanaka's WBO strawweight title. You gotta go peep that out on stream, but I will be watching that one for sure. What else? What else do we have here? Obviously, they're gonna sort of simulcast the Regis Prograis versus the Juan Velasco card on ESPN as like a prelim to the ESPN Plus card. I believe that's how they're gonna do it. Prograis should get an easy early finish against Velasco, who really has nothing to compare to what Regis Prograis is able to do. Teofimo Lopez is on the card versus William Silva. Teofimo Lopez, one of the best prospects out right now. Definitely want to go check that out. And Eric De Leon as well. But that is about it for all the boxing. Oh, sorry, I forgot this one from all my UK listeners. Rocky Fielding fighting Tyrone Zegg for Zegg's WBA regular super middleweight title. Not really a fight that I care about, to be honest. I'm sorry. Curtis saying Manny Pacquiao by UD. Manny still has enough speed and movement to win rounds without getting badly hurt. Plus, Lucas is small at 147. Won't be able to use the size like Jeff Horn. Yeah, but you also have to remember that Manny Pacquiao is a very small welterweight as well. Manny Pacquiao started as a much lower weight, and I think he's lost a lot of muscle mass as well, I would say, throughout his last 5 years or so. But it is what it is. Again, not necessarily the best fights this weekend, but notable ones, of course, when you have a guy like Manny Pacquiao on the card, or on the deck, I should say. And moving over to the MMA news of the week, because there really isn't that much boxing news from what I saw. And I really wanted just to give it, a highlight to Manny Pacquiao. So for all those that don't really care about MMA, this is your time you can hop off the show. It's okay. I forgive you. Slightly, just saying.
I want smoke.
Just saying. But moving over to sort of some pay-per-view news and more macro discussion on what the fuck the UFC are going to do. Early numbers for UFC 226 are disappointing per Dave Meltzer, MMAfighting.com. Reportedly under 400,000 pay-per-view buys. I know. It is. It's very unfortunate. Yep, I know. Now, why did this happen? This is a champion versus champion fight. You have the light heavyweight champion versus the heavyweight champion. Historically, two of the biggest, I shouldn't say biggest, two of the most sellable divisions in the sport of MMA have been those two. 205 and obviously 265 and under. How did this not work? I think there's several factors. One, John Jones. I think that's the obvious one. I think enough people know that John Jones beat Daniel Cormier, and therefore, you're thinking a lot, again, like a lot of people, John Jones could have beat this version of Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic. So it should really be John Jones in this position against Miocic, and it would have done more pay-per-view buys? I think so. Also, this really was no grudge match. There wasn't a sense of these two guys not liking each other. These are two UFC dads in a sense. One's a firefighter part-time and one looks like Daniel Cormier. You're going to get this sort of, blue collar aspect to it, and that doesn't really sell in today's age of prize fighting, or if ever, let's be honest. And I also think that pay-per-views are just down, period. It is hard to do big number pay-per-views nowadays. You have to have a lot of things on your side so you get those numbers. Think about the 5-year, 4-year build-up that Triple G Canelo had to reach 1 million. Think about all the UFC had to put in place for McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez super fight, similar to this one, champion versus champion. That was the first ever UFC event in New York City. There's two other championship fights on the card, 3 total. This one only had 1. I think this card, even though for us hardcores, maybe you're listening on hardcore on this show, but a lot of us realized that this fight was a big fight, but we knew that there was no atmosphere for it. We could feel it. We could tell that the casuals really weren't peaked on this one. Like, they didn't really care about this event as much. I think the Max Holloway Brian Ortega fight falling through maybe affected it slightly, but not drastically. Let's not kid ourselves here. Like, Daniel Cormier is a much bigger pay-per-view draw statistically than Max Holloway and Brian Ortega combined. So that should not have been a factor at all. I think we just had a fight here that the matchup itself doesn't really provide those fireworks, the drama that we want to see. Just look at what we got with Mayweather and McGregor, a fight that was the easiest fight to ever pick, ever. Did one of the best pay-per-view buy rates of all time. Why is that? Because the matchup had tons of drama moments build up into it. It was 2 loudmouth, sort of, not despised figures, but definitely polarizing. Polarizing is probably the best political correct word or term. 2 very polarizing figures, not only in their sport, but overall in just entertainment and sports entertainment, period. Regardless of the fact that it was a 49-0 versus an 0-0 fighter, it didn't matter. It sold on those factors alone. This one had everything on the opposite end of the scale. It was a fight with tons of legacy on it, 2 great fighters in a great run in their careers. Probably one of the best heavyweights ever, but 2 guys that aren't polarizing. 2 guys that aren't bigger than life in any sort of category. There's no drama in it. And also think about the way the UFC promoted this card. They promoted this card like it was 2008 still, and they still do it. They still have fucking The Ultimate Fighter going around like it is a driving force in promoting a big pay-per-view card. No one gives a fucking damn about the Ultimate Fighter and what it can do and the coaches and the fights. No one cares. No one gives an absolute flying fuck about that show anymore. The numbers show it. So the idea that that is going to be a driving force to this card to make it build up and hype is literally a decade-old paradigm way of thinking to promote UFC cards. But yet they're here. Yet they're here still putting out tough seasons. And speaking of that, the Ultimate Fighter finale on the Friday before the card did the worst numbers, or the second worst, I don't want to overspeak, maybe the worst. Did the worst numbers on Fox Sports 1 history for UFC. History. And it had a great main event in Israel Adesanya versus Brad Tavares. But it did 500,000 views on Fox Sports 1. Obviously, no one cares about that way of promoting a fight. So I don't know what the UFC is thinking going forward. Hopefully they look at this and say, we got to change it up. We got to change the way we promote this. We got to change the way we sort of make these events. I don't know. If you put this on Fox, regular Fox, would it have done great numbers? Like 4 or 5 million views? Possibly. I mean, they put a Max Holloway rerun of him fighting Jose Aldo the first time, I want to say, on Fox, and it did like 4.5 million views on Fox. There's been live Deontay Wilder fights on Fox that don't reach that numbers. So obviously there's a market there for putting high quality fights on Fox for free, or let's say CBS or whatever it would be. ESPN going forward, obviously, for the UFC since they have an ESPN deal. Maya in the chat saying they need to get with the times. Yeah, I mean, come on. It's ridiculous. Their UFC embedded show on YouTube, to me, is a better way of promoting the card than the entire season of Tough. And I bet it costs a fraction of the production costs that the Ultimate Fighter season does. Right? Again, I don't know what really there is to do because maybe these guys just aren't the stars. Like similar to how, even though I think promotionally they did an awful job with Sergey Kovalev versus Andre Ward, I think regardless of how much money they put in marketing for that fight, it was never going to be a super fight, right? Like I think most of us out there, I think, understand that not everyone's a star, but Daniel Cormier has done better numbers. Stipe Miocic has done better numbers. Like it is odd that it did this much, and maybe again the John Jones factor I mentioned off the top, and I haven't really talked about that much. Maybe that was a gigantic detrimental factor to this fight that really could not have been avoided. And this was the best case scenario for both guys to get the biggest paycheck, the biggest exposure, and it still wasn't enough because you have John Jones out there. You know? And again, we're going to see Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Cormier probably in January. That fight's going to do drastically better numbers. Why? It already had a moment of drama that is bigger than everything that Stipe versus Daniel Cormier did. Everything. The entire season of The Ultimate Fighter was worthless compared to that 20 seconds of Brock Lesnar saying the whole heavyweight division shit and Daniel Cormier, I'm coming for you, motherfucker. That 20 seconds did better ratings than everything that The Ultimate Fighter did for Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier. And I think they're sort of maybe realizing that, or hopefully they are. Maybe that's a reason they did pick up Brock Lesnar, because they realize, you know, their analytics department is going, hey, get ready. We're not going to really get the bank and get the bag like we thought with this fight. Maybe that's why they really brought Brock in there, because they know they need something. John Jones is still sort of out there in the ether. USADA has yet to really make a final verdict on what's going to happen with him. Conor McGregor is still on a yacht somewhere, I think, or no, he keeps posting pictures of him training. God knows what's going to happen. But yeah, the UFC needs to pick it up, because this run of bad numbers is not good for the business and not good for the sport overall. It seems like that MMA bubble is deflating in a way, and I don't know if, again, it's just a run of really lackluster events with no star power attached to it. I don't know. Eric Rosa saying it felt like the Lesnar moment made the UFC fans upset. But that's a good thing, I would say. Like, we posted a video, obviously, on our Instagram, Mixed Combat Radio. Check it out. Email us here at mixedcombatradio@gmail.com if you want to be a social media director or be a part of the show, whatever it may be. Hit us up there. But I think, you know, that video on our Instagram did like over like 35,000 views, and we have like 100 followers on our Instagram at this point. No, like 200 now, I want to say. I forget. But that did gangbusters, and a lot of the comments were really upset, really hateful. A lot of PD talk, a lot of like, oh, this is garbage. Oh, like they're doing WWE shit. And Fat Apple saying, sadly, WWE shouting sells. Sometimes the action doesn't. Great point. And I think a lot of people echoed that in maybe more vitriolic fashion. But that's a good thing. They cared. You know, we posted videos of Daniel Cormier, Stipe Miocic, everyone else, and it did literally 1/30th, 1/50th of the traction in the metrics that Brock Lesnar did. And I think regardless of people being upset or hating it, that's actually probably better. Polarization's a good thing. You want people like me saying, oh, it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, watch our immediate reaction to it on our YouTube channel if you haven't yet. You know, I was blown away by it. I called it because I'm like, oh, they're going to bring Brock Lesnar in. And they did. But I was still blown away by it. That was still an amazing sort of moment that I was like, yes, this is one of those that is going to go viral. It's one of those that's going to move the needle, so to speak. And I think it's a good thing. I think people, regardless of their hate or whatever, they're going to tune in. They tuned in and left a comment. Like, they obviously cared enough to watch the video, comment on our Instagram. They're going to care enough to watch all the freaking press conferences, all the weigh-ins. They're gonna watch everything. It's going to do 1 million pay-per-view buys. And then they're going to throw John Jones in the cage afterwards. And people are going to go nuts again. Regardless, it is WWE antics. The idea of like dramatization. That has always been connected with prize fighting. Whether it's boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA, WWE, etc. You have to do that in order to sell the fight. I think that's just that's commonplace at this point. And you go back 100 years, ago, and you can find promos hyping up fights in similar fashion. Like nothing's really changed. The medium in which we've done it is constantly evolving. It went from newspapers and pamphlets to radio to TV, then to the internet, and then obviously to now streaming and whatever that's going to lead to. It's interesting to see that the way promoting has been done has never changed. The medium in which you do it. That is why the Ultimate Fighter and the way the UFC has been selling their product lately has been failing. They're still selling it on an old medium, on TV. I think in today's age, you have to go digital. And yeah, that's about it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, hit that like button, subscribe, share the show. Be back tomorrow for a preview of the UFC card with Junior Dos Santos headlining. Always been a big fan of Junior Dos Santos. And one of the first cards I ever went to, like live, combat sports-wise, was when he knocked out Cain Velasquez on the first ever UFC on Fox card way back in 2010, 2011. I don't remember. But anyways, digressing. You can find me on all these platforms right here. Matt Hunter, MCR, and Mixed Combat Radio on all platforms. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, iHeartRadio now. Salute to us. Soon to be Spotify, so check out for that later. We're going to be on Spotify soon. iTunes, SoundCloud, obviously YouTube. If you listen to this on podcast, check us out on YouTube where we go live. Hit that bell icon so you know when we do go live and we do post content. And definitely go to patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio to help support the channel. All proceeds of Patreon goes towards the studio, goes towards building up the set, hiring people and contributors to build up the network. And obviously, I think I've said it before, but for those that do not know, August, stay tuned for a bunch of clothing line coming out, a bunch of clothes, t-shirts, sweaters, etc. That's coming out August sometime. Completely rebranding the show and the network also in August, and a new set. So stay tuned for that. Can't wait for that announcement and sort of that unveiling. But see y'all tomorrow again, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Hit that like button on the way out. Peace.